Glow plugs. Quick overview of glow plugs. My garage is always above freezing. You can hear the furnace is on there now. It's 12, 13 degrees in here, 55 Fahrenheit-ish. Still likes the glow plugs. So for the glow plugs, you move the key to the first detent, hold it. That little light comes on the bottom of the dash there, goes out, a few seconds, cranks and starts. You can also see, I've got a voltmeter hooked to it, shows about 11 volts. With them initiated, off, 0 volts. I've also got this hooked up. I'll show you a quick check for ohms, resistance, if you're questioning whether they work or not. Move it to ohms. Showing 5, I think that's a little rich. It's probably closer to 1, maybe it's dropping. Maybe it's higher because they're warm from just cycling, so they're dropping to 2.2, 2.3, 1.2. So 1 kilo or 1 ohm seems to be kind of the spec. And this is where they're located down in here. They're connected by this bar here that's connected to the wire for power, feeds them 12 volts, ground through the block, and they warm it. They turn red hot in the end. They warm the air in that cylinder to the point that the diesel will ignite and really make it easier to start in all climates, cold especially, but I find it even needs it at room temperature. Probably the only time I don't use them is after it's been running and you just immediately restart it. So that's just a little quick overview of the glow plugs. Okay, let's take a quick look at some of the driver station controls here. Joystick for your loader operation. This is a mechanical lock for the loader. You kind of pull it up and it just makes it so it doesn't lock the hydraulics, it just locks the joystick from being moved falsely. These are rear hydraulic control remotes that I had added on for rear remotes. Obviously your 3-point up and down 4-wheel drive range selector. In here, this controls the rate at which the rear arms and the 3-point descend. So if you have a heavy load and it's wide open like a tap, it'll drop really fast. If it's closed, pinched right off, it won't drop at all. Incrementally back and it slows it. The knob over here to the left side is marked top to the arrow, and that controls the moor deck. It locks it up so that it will not go up and down with the 3-point arms, or the numbers relate to the number of inches of grass cut to stop how far it descends. And then further over is the differential lock. That lock mechanically internally in the transaxle locks the rear 2 wheels together with pins. It's delicate. You do need a speed differential to engage and disengage. By that I mean one wheel needs to be spinning at different speed than the other, so a slight turn. However, then turning becomes a challenge because the wheels are locked together and not allowed for the outside wheel to travel at a different speed than the inside. So you get kind of a chucking or a rocking sensation. So you want to be on loose or mud or sand as opposed to hard asphalt if you initiate that. Up here we have the screen that allows air into the rad. Further up here, we have the screen that everyone always talks about on the internet to blow out when it gets covered with grass. Throttle, cruise control, 1800s or 1880s don't have the cruise. Other than that, that's about it in the operation station. Okay, pictured there is the fuel shutoff for the fuel pump. It's an electric solenoid that the tractor's at rest currently, so the fuel is situated in the on position. It toggles off when you turn the key off and then resets. Now, when people say they can't shut it off, the tractor, if you were to manually move this, that would shut the tractor off. So right now, if I turn the key on, it's already energized, it would start and crank. And then you'll hear the fuel pump. I'll turn the key off, and then it will cycle as I moved it manually to shut the fuel off. There. So now the fuel's off, and in a couple seconds, it will reset, release its electrical current, reset to the run position. There. But that would be how you could manually kill it if it failed to stop on the key. Or if there's something faulty with it where it's not open fully like it is now, you may have a hard start issue. Off, run, and you can see. Anyways. Just a little point there if somebody's ever missed. Tire pressures. I sometimes see people saying that they have low tires or they've added tire pressure to it. I read earlier this week that someone had to top up the tire. They're having issues with the valve stump. It said they topped them up to the same as a car, which is probably 30 pounds per square inch plus 30 PSI. I'm not exactly sure what the spec is. I posted here where I like to run them. I keep them at 17 for the fronts and 14 for the rears. Sometimes I add a little more to the front just because if I do put somewhat of an overload on the loader, they get flattened out and the tractor's hard to steer. But you just don't need 30 PSI. In fact, I'm not sure what it says inside, but the maximum spec would be nowhere near that. I also have, these tires are filled with fluid, so to even check them, I have to bring that valve up to 12 o'clock so the fluid doesn't run out or wreck my pump or my tire gauge when I check them. If it's down there where it is at 7 o'clock, you would just get fluid out. Coolant. These tractors take just basic green antifreeze. I kind of would recommend just buying it at the Kubota dealer. Then you know what you've got. You can see the level down there. It's in between. The green line is between the two full and low level. If it was hot, I would suspect it'll rise a bit as it expands and comes out. Never ever take the cap off hot. One of the worst burns I've ever suffered in my automotive career was removing a hot cap, and the steam came out and just melted my forearm, the inner part of my forearm. So like, check them cold. There's just no, if you've got an overheating problem, it's nothing you're going to fix in the next 30 seconds. So check it cold, let it cool, be very careful. Adding to a hot engine, if it goes in, instantly turns to steam, and it's going to boil back out there, and it'll scald you. You will only do it once. The Kubota app, you can download it from the App Store. Just add your equipment, select it. It has manuals, information, all the specs, everything that is in literature. All models seem to be online. Everything's available there. Check it out in the App Store. It's an excellent, excellent resource. I use it for all reference points. The treadle pedal, forward and reverse. Sometimes on the internet, and people will complain that the vehicle won't start because this may or may not be slightly engaged. It's kind of a spring cable self-centering thing. A lot of people comment that it needs to be greased. So in there, you can maybe see there's a greaser. And that greases the bushing that goes left to right across the through the frame, and it just needs to be lubed. I think it's the only greaser on the tractor, to be honest. There's some other spots you grease, but it's the only greaser on the tractor aside from the loader. But keep that in mind. Maybe give it grease, every 10 hours or so, just to keep that free. Because if it binds, it'll initiate a switch and it won't start because it thinks you're trying to command it forward or backwards. Fuel conditioner. Often people with running concerns in the cold weather, people always suggest, hey, have you got fuel conditioner in it? People buy fuel, keep it in a jerry can. The companies that manufacture it put different additives in diesel fuel based on the time of year. So I've always, growing up on a farm, we always ran the green can in farm tractors or dumped it direct into the bulk tank. Each of those cans, I think, is 1 liter and treats 1,000 liters of fuel. So there's quite a long time. And it has anti-gelling properties. So if you happen to have what they call summer fuel, it doesn't have the cold weather additives in it, and this is the additive. The can on the right, the orange can, not only matches Kubota, but it's for ultra-low sulfur. So it's kind of a newer product. Mind you, they both say ultra-low sulfur on them, but I don't know, I picked it up because the green one is now empty. But I think I probably had that for 5 or 10 years. You don't use much, but it just stops the fuel from gelling in the winter. And, eliminates that hard start for a lot of people because fuel, once it gels, you have to bring it in and heat it. I do believe this clean flow product is meant to kind of go through it, capillary itself through, and will de-gel it. But it can be a holdup. And I think I add it whether I have summer or winter fuel. Hydraulic and or transmission fluid, UTD, as it's called, UTD Premium here in Canada. I think it's UDD2 in America. There was some patent rule that it's premium here. And I believe some of the older tractors just used UDT. Anyways, I don't think that there's people always have an alternative fluid. I've never been able to read anything that someone says this is actually made by company X for Kubota and this is a substitute. It's kind of an expensive fluid, but so are the generics. So I don't know, for myself, I'm just going to run the premium UTD from Kubota. It's a 200-hour lifespan, I think, maybe 400 for the second interval. You'll have to check that. Again, the great reference for that is the app. The app is a great tool for maintenance, specs, everything. And then the fluid gets checked. You pull that dipstick that's located